When you really look at Common Core standards, you see that they place a lot of emphasis on writing. It's assumed that writing is the channel through which a great deal of reading work and even reading assessments are to take place. Therefore, it's extremely important that we begin creating strong and eager writers at an early age. One thing that I've discovered is the importance of the planning process. It's that pre-thinking. Especially when a student starts responding to something that they've read in the text. It's hard just for them to jump right in and start composing their thoughts. I found that sketching a plan is an extremely effective way to start. Now, while I prefer to use a separate plan card and draft paper that I created on my own, the process can be used with any resource that you're already comfortable with. For example, a composition notebook can be used in a few simple ways. You can have the student create a plan directly in the notebook, designating an area for it. This way they can sketch their thinking. You can also have them plan separately and then include it in their notebook. I prefer to have a student do their plan separately so that as you turn the pages of the notebook, the student can still easily refer to their plan. When a student moves on to drafting, I found that it's incredibly helpful to keep nice wide spaces between the lines so that this encourages later going back and making some changes. For example, here, this student took advantage of the large space to think through a lot of the changes and additions that they wanted to make. It makes it much easier for students to insert thoughts and to add other information. In a composition notebook, this same effect can be achieved simply by teaching students to set up their notebook with those spaces. X marks the spot is the signal that I tend to use. This way, the students know this is the line area that they write, and then this gives them that space that they need. Once you move on to revising, I find it's helpful for students to use some sort of pen. It's of course more motivating for the students, and I think that the contrast in color makes changes more visible. At this point, you can have students work on any specific skill you might be emphasizing. Perhaps you're working on a particular writing trait or another teaching point that you've introduced in class. In my classroom, we used purple pens where we went through. And then if we were working on a particular trait, we would use a highlighter. In this case, the student was using yellow because in my classroom, yellow signified voice in a piece. Because instilling a habit of conventions is also important, I have my students use green pens to go through their drafts. I teach them to underline every capital letter and every piece of punctuation. This creates a nice visual tool for the writer. If they have too few marks on their paper, then they know they need to go back and edit and add. If they don't have enough punctuation, then they can look and reread carefully. If their page is covered with marks, then they know that they've got too much and that they need to change there. I find that teaching students to do this independently helps improve conventions and helps the student internalize the process so that it starts to become more automatic.